Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's August 13th, 2024 Graham City Council meeting. We would like to invite Steve Braswell up to the podium to give our invocation. Pastor Steve Braswell has been pastor since October of 2003. So a long time. That's 21 years, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. He was raised in North Carolina and after working for 7 years as an editor, received his seminary training at Union Theological Seminary and Duke Divinity School. He served as an associate pastor in Durham, North Carolina for 8 years before moving to little old Graham. His wife, Joy, is a substitute teacher for the Alamance Burlington schools. They have 2 daughters, Emily, who work in Gibsonville, and Lauren, who went to be with the Lord in 2020. He has been awarded 3 degrees with summa cum laude honors, the Bachelor of Theology degree from Piedmont Bible College in 1985, and the Master of Divinity degree from Duke University Divinity School in 1995, and the Doctor of Ministry degree from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary in 2001. I know that Griffin speaks very highly of you. I think I've met you once or twice at different events. I try to take visitors over to your beautiful church to show them the beautiful stained glass that you have there. Absolutely wonderful. And we are very sorry to see you retire, but having editors in your resume, newspapers are always hiring. So we'd love to have a positive editorial every once in a while.
Sure, I'm sure you would.
If you would like to put one forward, that would be great.
Yeah.
So, but we appreciate you being here and appreciate you doing our invocation tonight. Would you like to say something about your retirement?
Not really. Thank you for your service. I was a resident of Graham for 17 years, live in Gibsonville now, but was here for 17 years and appreciate your service in our community. So you ready for the prayer?
Sure.
All right, let's join together in prayer.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord our God, we thank you for all of your blessings. We thank you for the blessing of this community. And we pray now for its leaders as they convene in this meeting. We pray that you would guide them. We pray that you would help them to do their best, to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with you, their God. We pray that you would encourage them in the work that they do. Not everybody's always going to agree with all their decisions, but we pray that you'd help them to seek to do what is right and to do what is best for this community. Guide them in all they do this evening. We pray in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
We're all jealous that you're retiring. I am. Okay, if you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Griffin. The consent agenda, A, to approve the July 9th, 2024 council meeting minutes and sealed closed session minutes. B, to approve a date change for the previously approved Graham Toberfest to close the 100 block of West Elm Street to a new date of September 21st from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. C, to approve the procurement and financial management and internal control policies for ARPA project funding compliance. D, to approve the drinking water emerging contaminants construction project in 2024 to 2034 water capital improvement plan resolutions. E, to set a date of public hearing for September 10th, 2024 to consider extending the corporate limits to the city of Graham for a tract of land totaling 0.79 acres off Jimmy Kerr Road and to direct the city clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition. AN 2403. F, to approve a budget amendment to increase federal drug funds by 50,000 for the use of police department. G, to approve a project ordinance for the downtown enhancement grant allocation project for $600,000. Is there anyone that is here tonight to discuss any of the items that are on the consent agenda? Yes, sir. Thank you for being here, Assistant Chief.
Hi, good afternoon. We have a staff report submitted for the budget amendment for $50,000 of our federal drug funds to be moved to our line item to be used throughout the year.
Do you know what it would be used for?
Traditionally, they're used for covert operations, tracking devices and things of that nature. Normally, stuff we don't publicize, but the funds are needed to be on hand, such as an active investigation. We need these funds to keep the investigation going. There's a list of different uses that are approved through the asset forfeiture program. And these uses are available online, and we can also forward a copy of that if the council wishes to see those.
I guess I'm confused as to why would you have to come to council and ask for the funds
So
if you don't have to tell the council, which we're just like the public, we're just the representative of the public, what those funds are going to be used for. And you don't have to be like about a specific crime or investigation, but if you're going to use, I think last year when this came up, you said you were getting a motorcycle and I think a vehicle or something, I don't know.
No, to kind of interject on this,
Okay,
these
thank you.
funds are held in a separate fund. So the federal drug funds and the state drug funds are in funds 20 and 21. When the city council approves the project or the budget ordinance for the year, we don't allocate anything, any revenues or expenditures coming from those funds. So we wait for the fiscal year to start, for there to be a need or an anticipated need, and then we ask city council to allocate those. So there is an opportunity for discussion as opposed to just plugging in a number in the budget ordinance that doesn't really have any kind of review or anything really in the process.
How much is in that fund?
Over,
it changes from time to time, but the amendment only allows for settled funds, and those are verified before asking. It's the internal audit that's conducted prior to asking for the funds to be transferred to our line item. The timing on it is purposeful. It's not to take place at the same time the normal budget occurs, so that there can be no suggestions that these funds would be used to supplant the budget. And that's why it comes later after the normal budget has been approved.
So last year, did we get a list of things that they were using the money for?
off the top of my head, I don't recall a list. I remember a $30,000 estimated expenditure for some of their specialized training and communications efforts that they used, and that is a similar request, I believe, for this year.
So last year it was 30,000 and this year it's 50?
No, just
Oh,
that one
okay.
part.
Okay,
Yeah, last year the budget amendment was also 50.
okay,
This year, the budget amendment request is for 50.
okay. Does the department have a problem with when you do spend the 50 to let us know what it was spent on?
Oh, yeah, as that occurs, yes.
Okay.
The only person that can spend it is the chief of police.
Okay,
So, and that's communicated from the chief with the manager's office. And then annually, we're required to file with the federal government exactly what those expenditures were. And
you know what they were spent on last year?
if I remember correctly, we were able to initiate 2 K-9 units. And right off the top of my head there. And then we did purchase some hardware equipment for surveillance and covert operations.
And you still have the K-9 units?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, still have 2 K-9 units.
that's great.
that helps us enhance, our abilities to investigate drug-related crimes.
Absolutely a big fan.
Yeah.
Wish they did it at every school. You wouldn't have any problems with the,
And all of this, the funds are not taxpayer funds. They're asset forfeitures.
are you still taking the canine units in any of the schools?
Yes, yes,
Oh, that's wonderful.
yes.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. That's a good use of the money, in my opinion, for sure. Well, thank you for coming tonight and explaining what the money's being used for. We just try to be transparent and, want, people to know what we're using it for.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And then I had a question about Graham Taberfest. Is this the same hours that it was last year? It is, just a different date, right? Okay. And are they letting people know that that's a different date than what they had previously?
So, between myself, Renee, and, applicant themselves, we will recirculate their information back out again.
Okay, and then all the people on West Elm Street that it would affect, they're aware of that, right? As much as they can be? Okay, you've sent out an email or something, right? Okay, I just want to make sure those businesses know. It should still be able to get to every business that's open, is that correct? Because I know the last time we had an event over there, there were some complaints, as you know. But that's only because part of Maple Street was closed off. But for this event, you're still gonna be able to get to CNZ Grill. You're still gonna be able to get to the Maple Street Tavern. It's still gonna be able to get to Bottles and, what is the name of that? What's the name of that?
Oh, Little
business?
Brothers?
The brothers.
Oh, okay, Little Brothers. Yeah,
Call it Bottle and something.
yeah. Okay, so I just want to make sure it's not going to affect anybody negatively. Okay, anybody, you have any other questions, council? Good, okay. Do I hear a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as
Okay.
written.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the public hearing, in regards to text amendment recreational open space. The city council will consider an ordinance amendment to Article 4, Division 12, Section 10.249, open space provision for R12, R15, and R18 zoning districts in the development ordinance to require recreational open space in all open space subdivisions. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on the proposed text amendment? Hearing none, we will move to discussion from the council. I did have concerns. I mean, I think the reason this got brought up is because the original intent of this open space was not to reduce lot size. And so I know when it was passed years ago, the goal of it, to my knowledge, was to have open space located throughout the development that's being developed, so that you wouldn't go and just have a developer come in and just completely clear cut an area. Also, has been repeated concerns about, say, for instance, we're on the council, you have a bunch of residents that come, they say, well, I can't really see the development because I have a natural barrier there. Can we keep that barrier? And we say, yes. And we put in the plans and we tell the developer, we want this 20-foot barrier to, stay. And they go out there and clear cut that anyways and put up a new barrier that doesn't have mature trees, doesn't have the same topography. The runoff is much worse. Anytime you're disturbing the soil, it's causing the flow of the water to move differently, those sort of things. So how can we beef up, I think, a little bit more in this ordinance, or The things that I'd like to address are things like, no clear cutting. City encourages developers to incorporate open space throughout the development and to keep mature trees and natural vegetation and landscaping buffers. The city encourages developers to build with natural features and topography as much as possible in order to avoid excessive disruption to soil erosion and take into consideration the surrounding properties. Sometimes I see these developers, they'll build up the topography on that property artificially at no regard for the surrounding property owners, and then they get dumped, all this water then gets dumped on those surrounding properties. You know, we already have a big problem over there with flooding on the entrance to Avalon Valley there where that bridge is, and all of those apartments that are being built and continue to be built. The flooding just keeps getting, you know, worse and worse in that area. And that it wouldn't, you know, we talk about having the ability to be able to get to and from someplace and having two means of egress, but that's way over 100 units when you total it all out, and they literally have no way of getting out because it is the only means of egress is that road. What's the name of that road, Aaron?
It's about Woody,
Yeah, Woody Drive.
Whittemore.
Is it Whittemore or is it Woody?
Woody is the one closest to the interstate.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's no other exit out of that area, isn't that correct?
Go up to the top of the hill.
Yeah, you have to meander your way around.
Up the hill and turn to the right, that brings you back.
I thought they couldn't, because they, like, when it flooded before, the fire chief told me that they couldn't get to their home, that was the only exit. Is there another exit?
There's another road, ma'am, but it's, the creek runs down and covers both of those, and they couldn't even get in or out. That's what.
Both of the exits are covered.
Both of them. One comes out by the ABC store.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's just a lot of people getting trapped, and we just had that big storm, hurricanes happen every year, so it just makes me very nervous.
you see here, yeah, see how you can meander your way, come down Woody, go down Noah, and come back up Whittemore. So that's another route that can be taken.
But last time, wasn't both areas flooded?
Mhm. I mean, that can happen, but when this one generally does, it forces people to have to go this way.
Okay.
And to your point on the text amendment, I think in the current state, the text addresses trying to be conservative with land disturbance automatically. It's not encouraging anyone to have to go out and clear anything because it's trying to protect sensitive areas. I think what happens with any development, especially when you have grading, you may have a developer who going in, because even for financial purposes, they're trying not to clear a whole lot of area, but the grading plan, in order to maintain a certain rate of runoff, may end up cutting more to be able to grade the property, in a way that allows for it to not create that issue for neighboring properties or downstream. So I think even like you see here, this is already in there to try not to disturb areas where you don't have to. I think the text amendment that we have here, based off of the discussion that we had with council earlier, was to have developers not use open space in a vague way where they can just put on a plan open space and that covers that requirement that they're providing some form of an amenity to the residents. It's more specific now, and it requires that they have to dedicate a certain amount of open space for specific recreation purposes. So I think what it's doing is addressing that deficiency that we were having before, where you would have developers come in, put a blank open space tag on the plan, and it could be anything under the sun, as simple as a walking trail or open gathering space.
A lot of it was in the floodplain also.
Right. And this does not take it out of the floodplain, because we do want to keep buildings out of the floodplain. So the floodplain is the most sensitive areas that you're gonna have on a piece of property, and you want to try to keep that from being disturbed as much as you can. But it's not making it where they're gonna take whatever amenity and just put it in this space and say,
Right.
you know, walk away, we're satisfied that requirement. So I think this is a great bridge ordinance. At some point, whenever we do come around to doing development ordinance rewrite, this would be easily able to transfer into whatever that plan is, because it does speak to more of a modern setup to how ordinances are written now. This is what you see for open space requirements in other jurisdictions.
Would it be good if we added the R9 to this?
So as that specific zone doesn't receive the ability to drop down. So your R12 can drop down to 10,000, R15, R18, they can. So it's only speaking to this section.
So if someone has an R18 and they go in there and they put in a 5,000 square foot open space to be used as a multipurpose field that then the HOA is gonna take care of, the most they would be able to go down from R18 would be to what?
16,000 square foot lots. I mean, you talking about as far as the lots size themselves?
Mm-hmm. Are they just dropping down that 5,000 that they lost, or are they getting a benefit of way more?
No, they're getting the benefit of being able to drop down to smaller lot sizes by providing these open space areas with amenities. So that's in our ordinance now. But what we're doing now is requiring that of that open
But
space.
is it apples to apples? Like they're giving up 5,000 square feet that they could potentially build on? And are they, but are they getting like 20,000 more square feet because of the lot drop down?
I think what's being gained is on the city side of knowing that X amount of square feet, you have to be able to provide for open space. And of that amount of space, this much of it is going to be utilized as active recreation space. So it's going to be specific to that versus it being a blanket, because before you could just pick anything between 1 to 7. Now it's actually saying if you're going to use the drop down allocation, you're going to have so much of it of open space as active recreation space.
20%.
Right. Or up to 5,000, because 20%, take for instance, 100-acre lot, that would be astronomical size of open space. So,
Right.
But yes, there would be a certain amount that, depending on the size of the acreage of the open space, you would have to allocate so much of it as a specific active recreation space.
Right, so let's just use that as an example so if you have 100 lots and you go from R18 down to R16, how many additional lots did you pick up versus losing the 5,000 square feet?
I mean, we would have to run the numbers based off of
Just
how many,
ballpark.
how many streets are you gonna have driveways, all that's gonna be taken in. It's hard to answer that question without knowing Yeah, you have to know what the layout of the development is.
But
That,
would
that,
you,
that part isn't changing. That part is still in play, that they have the ability to drop down from an R12, to have R12 zoning with 10,000 square foot lots. So you're allowing 2,000 square feet of available space that you're not having to develop for that particular property.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Aaron. It doesn't seem, if I bought a house and everything around me, because this is the complaints we get from the residents are, you know, I built in an area that is all R, let's just say, maybe it's not R18, maybe it's R15. And now they basically, all the property around me was already zoned R15. Now they're able to make those lots a lot smaller, and all they have to do is just have one 5,000 square foot park or gazebo or whatever. But out of 100 lots, I mean, they're able to pick up 2,000 square feet, right, per lot
Mhm.
for just giving up 5,000. It just doesn't seem like a fair trade. If I was a neighbor, I would be like, well, that doesn't seem very fair, that I want something very similar to what I have now. Do you think most neighbors would?
But then I think the argument should be made, do you even have the ability in our ordinance for that to even be in place? Because what's being written is with the open space allowance that you're giving someone to be able to drop down, you're allocating so much space for at this specific recreation uses. But if the argument that you're wanting to make is that I don't think that we should have it where you're going to be able to go and not match this area over here, then we should look at taking that out the ordinance altogether. The ability to drop down from R whatever down to a certain square foot lot. Because I think what we have now is you have certain zones that are able to apply for the open space allowance. You get that open space allowance and they have nothing that they're specifically showing for that particular open space as a recreational use.
That's correct.
But now you do.
Right, but to me, I think people are very, simple in their, you know, if they buy an R12 area or an R15 or an R18 area and everything around them is zoned the same, their expectation of that they're gonna have similar lot sizes all around them. And, you know, I think the real distrust comes from when you say, you know, I specifically remember one resident coming saying, well, you know, they're going from R18 to R12. They're asking from R18 to R12, but really it's not R12, it's R10. And I get that a resident would feel like I'm not really getting the truth about how they're going to develop these properties, and the lots on these are going to be a lot smaller than everything that's around them. Because you're able to, you know, the rezoning through the council would allow them to go from R18 to R12, but then the open space would let them go down even another tier to R10. So, you know, I just feel like I thought the intent was to say, hey, developer, obviously you're wanting to get the most money you can out of this property. So I understand that you want to if you have the ability to be able to put in 100 lots, what would incentivize you to take 2 of those lots and put them into recreation or into open space? And it's like a like trade. It doesn't mean that every single lot in the whole development then gets another 2,000 square feet. It doesn't seem like that's an equal trade to me.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, I think this is addressing that with the provision in mind, because even if you're saying take 2 lots, what amenity would take up a 2-lot space that you're not already gaining with the open space requirement, requiring that you had to have X amount of square feet with a certain portion of it as a specific open space use? Like, even if you say put basketball courts,
So you're going to put in 100 lots, but the most they have to do for open space open space with recreation is 5,000 square feet?
No, the open space is still gonna be the same, whether,
Same.
right,
Okay.
it's still gonna be the same. It's just that of that open space requirement, you're specific to have 5,000 as a particular thing, pickleball courts or tennis courts or whatever. It's gonna be something specific of that open space that you're required to have.
So let me make sure I understand you correctly. So what you're saying is if they opt to do this open space thing, that they could come and present like, we're gonna build an R18 neighborhood, but we're gonna do this, open space thing. So now we can drop our lot size down. And like the mayor was saying, now it's no longer an R18 neighborhood. It's something smaller. I mean, to me, that's, you know, that's just a way to get around, what the land was zoned for in the first place. Which, I don't know,
To me, it
I mean, I'm
misrepresents
not,
to
maybe,
the
maybe I'm
public.
not understanding the whole drop down thing.
Well, the whole
Properly.
point of the drop down, and this goes back years.
I know it's an incentive,
It's
but basically they're gonna pack more houses in.
which is from a city perspective, which is what a city would want them to do. You want dense development because you don't want them to spread it out into certain areas, because that's gonna create more roads, which are gonna be more expensive to take care of. You're going to put properties into sensitive areas. You're gonna have to clear out more. So when you're clustering together, it does, from a city's viewpoint, make the development more appetizing.
Well, I guess I understand that, but I guess I'm looking at it from just a home buyer and a citizen's standpoint. To me, if I'm living in an R18 neighborhood and the land next to me is zoned R18, and this developer comes in and says, well, I'm gonna leave this open space. So now this is really gonna be and this is just an example,
Mhm.
like an R12 neighborhood now.
Which happens all the time.
That would torque me off.
But
I mean, I'm sorry, and I'm just
Right.
looking at it from a
But that brings back to the,
citizen standpoint. That would make me angry.
but that brings back to my earlier point that if the focus is to not have that as an option, then this section shouldn't be in our ordinance. Because what we were asked to do was to, whenever they were taking advantage of floodplain areas and wetland areas and just throwing open space into those sensitive areas and then calling that as satisfying their thing without giving specific uses within that space, what you have before you is, yes, you got to have so much in open space as before, but of that amount, this much of it has to be utilized in a specific recreation way. But if the argument that's being asked now to be looked at is how do we get them from dropping from a R12 down to 10,000 square foot lots, then that section may need to just be removed or looked at being removed. Because trying to work it in,
Maybe it should.
yeah, trying to work it in now is gonna make it very difficult outside of a rewrite.
So you're only requiring 20,000 square foot of open space in order to be able to do the drop down, is that right?
It's 20%, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but it comprises of at least 20,000 square feet of space that satisfies the definition of open space. And of the 20,000, 5,000 has to be for recreation, is that correct?
Right, so you have here your open space, minimum square foot, depending on which zone you're in.
So
so much
for
of it.
simple terms, if you're you're not even at R12, but if you're at R10, that's two lots, two 10,000 square foot lots of open space. The developer's giving up less than two lots, basically. But he's able to gain, if he has 100 lots that he's developing, he's able to gain 2,000 square feet per lot, right?
Mhm.
So,
And I don't think he's necessarily giving up 2 lots. He's just making that space
It might not even be buildable.
it's
That,
usable. Yeah, it's not as a recreation. It's not even giving up the lots. It's,
He's just working within the open space that he was gonna already have to begin with. He's just making specific uses within that space.
Well, it seems like we ought to require them to have the open space way without incentives. They should have a percentage of open space. But I don't think that they should be able to, change the zoning of the neighborhood by giving up a little bit of, extra usable space. I mean, that's just my opinion, but.
and I don't think the council, and Bonnie, I don't mean to speak for you, but I mean,
Sorry.
we're open to, we understand that the cost of development has gone up exponentially. And we understand what you're saying about for the city, the cost that you have. But I guess what irks me a little bit about this is just the general public doesn't understand how it works. And it's complicated, right? Even when you're trying to explain it to people that understand development, it's complicated. And so like, it doesn't seem fair, in my opinion, so what I see happening, and which was not the intent of the ordinance, was, because when we talked about this, 20 years ago, it was about, how do we get rid of like the degradation of, what sometimes people call as, track home building, where they come in and completely clear cut everything, get rid of all the buffers, and then put back these very small trees and everything, and don't like try to keep the open space that naturally existed on the property throughout the development. What you used to see years and years ago was people would go out, developers would go out and they'd tag trees and say, okay, I want you to clear out all this other than these mature trees. And it like was developed more, you developed more with the land, the natural topography of the land, the natural mature trees that are there, that kind of stuff. I get that things are expensive. I totally get that, but I don't really, and I think what I hear from the community is that they don't really like the clear cutting of things. And it doesn't make sense when we have the developer say, where I'm going to leave this buffer, and then the residents are calling saying they came in here and completely bulldozed the buffer down, for them to just put back a very immature buffer. And now that I get snapshots sent to me. This is what I look out when I'm doing the dishes now out my window. I see this big, massive mud puddle. So I get that. And I just feel like we need to be honest and open about when something gets rezoned to R12, it's not really R12, because the developer is going to take advantage of this. If he's going to be able to gain 20 lots for giving up 2, what developer wouldn't do that? And they're just going to basically take all of the stuff around the property that's not developed, that's not able to be, or they don't want to develop it because they'd have to get flood insurance because it's flood zone. And they just say, well, that's my open space. Because that's what happens.
But-
You
but-
know that that's true.
To that point, that was the intent of this ordinance. You can even read in the first paragraph, these provisions seek to encourage the development of compact neighborhoods, to take development into tight area and set aside significant natural vistas and landscape features for permanent conservation. It's actually written in a way to bring development into a tighter space, to not disturb as much land disturbance as you possibly can.
It may have been written that way, but I was on the council when that was passed, and the way it was explained to council. I mean, I remember this specifically, is that the idea was that when you're driving down the road of a brand new development, that you would have this open space located throughout the development. That's not how it's written, right? But I don't know.
Well, I think the imagination of a developer varies. Like, some would take it that way and have pockets of open space throughout. We have seen lately where some have taken all of it and thrown it into a certain area. And that was what this ordinance amendment was intended to do, is to address not having just a blanket, vague, open space to count as the requirement for the provision. As it stands, a person could come in for R12, they can do it right now and get a 10,000 square foot provision. What this amendment does would be to make it where they had to go a little bit further with effort and trying to put in at this stuff. I completely understand where you're coming from. I think that that's a bigger amendment for a document that is different than the one that we're working with now.
Okay,
I think this is a step in the right direction, but it's,
It's an
I think-
improvement of what we
Right.
have now.
I think it needs some more work, though.
I mean, I guess the thing that bothers me is it says this provision seeks to encourage. It doesn't require, it encourages.
Mhm.
So it leaves it open. I
Mhm.
mean, it leaves it open to do, okay, well, we encouraged it, but they still did what they wanted to
It's
do.
vague.
It's very vague. That's the problem I have. It's just vague. It encourages, it, recommends, but it doesn't require. That's my problem with the whole ordinance. It doesn't require, it recommends or suggests or encourages.
Encourages out and place it where required.
But then that speaks against what the mayor's
That's the
speaking
whole-
on,
yeah.
because now
Now you're forcing them to
now
do
you're
it.
forcing them to come at it into a space.
That's,
It's like that.
It's
throughout
worse.
The ordinance though. I mean, everything's a suggestion or a.
And that's why I was saying that the ordinance in itself, because this is current language.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying, as it's written right now, it doesn't lend itself to what the mayor is alluding to with trying to get developers to look at it from a different point of view, which I don't disagree with at all. I'm just saying as it's currently written, they have that provision in place to come in for R12 and get $10,000 provision, I mean, 10,000
Right.
provision.
I mean, it happened just, one of the developers came in and they said, specifically asked, is it gonna stay 12,000?
And then it
And
was
then
like
they
last
came
year.
right in and they
Yeah.
came in and it was 10,000, when it was all said and done. And I think one of them was even less than 10,000.
And we've had people who came in for R9 and were denied, so they went for the R12, so they can drop down to the 10,000 and be close to getting the 9,000 square foot lots with those 10,000 square foot lot provisions.
and my issue is that if everyone knows about that, if all the residents know that they're about to go from R18 to R10, and they're okay with that for whatever reason, because it's, mixed use, you're gonna have, this council, I think, has shown that we support mixed use. We don't have a problem with putting in, townhomes and stuff in a natural, in a development. But we have a problem with, perpetuating that we're gonna do X and then Y is done. I don't like that, and I don't think residents, I think there's all a natural distrust of government anyways, and I don't like it when we don't explain that to residents and they don't clearly understand, and then it comes back, because you'll have a developer come up here and say one thing, and then when everything gets said and done, it's totally different than what was said in the meeting.
Mhm.
And I just think we need to have better transparency about development with the residents. And if they say it got rezoned to R10, those residents are expecting 10,000 square foot lots, and they better get them. I don't, we just need to be honest about how that works. And I don't think a normal resident reading this would understand that. Would you agree with that statement?
I agree.
So how can we fix it so that it is easy for them to understand and,
We had to do a lot more than what we have what we have currently is better than what we have now.
I
And
get
what we-
that.
And what's shown is gonna get you into a better spot when you go into a rewrite of the whole development ordinance. The problem that you have is that if you're trying to rewrite this whole section, then there are points within the ordinance that touch back to this here that we're also gonna have to you have to go through the whole ordinance to make this whole section redone. So there's a small fix that we can do now that will improve what we currently have. I guess the options are we can stay like we are now, or we can move forward with what you have before you, which will make it better because you're getting specific uses in this open space. Or we can look at scrapping this whole section, trying to redo this whole section and all other touch points within the ordinance, which would be a big undertaking that would take time.
Which basically ends up rewriting the whole ordinance.
Right, because you got other sections within the ordinance that speak back to this allowance that we provide.
What is the timeline on the ordinance rewrite? I know it's been discussed multiple times.
Yeah, I know Megan had sent out in some updates that, we've looked at consultants, and just informal conversation. You're looking at potentially, it's gonna take about 2 years to do. They typically run over 2 budget years because of how much
Yep.
effort goes into
Right.
those. If that's something council will want to do, obviously we would look at that going into a budget year, allocate funds, and then, from there, allocate remaining funds for the remaining amount for that rewrite. But it typically does take 2 budget years. And it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we need to look at for at least next year at the latest. Start the process in the next budget year, because things have changed. I mean, a lot of stuff is out of date, and the nature of the development and the way things are developed, and
Mhm.
I mean, I liked the idea that one of the developers talked to me about, which was, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of it, but it's instead of having the retention pond, they have a,
Bioswale?
yeah, and that both serving as a way to handle soil erosion, but also at the same time, there's nothing wrong with it being like an open space, and it's beautiful and it's green and it's like it's different than those monstrosities that are those big man-made ponds for mosquitoes and all that stuff to sit in that a lot of the people in the developments don't like. They have to put up fences, all that kind of, their maintenance issue, all of that. So, he said they are more expensive, but again, how could we, I don't mind giving up apples for apples. Like if I wouldn't even mind, and I think as a resident, if I'm gonna be beside something and somebody's gonna put natural areas throughout a development and make it look so much nicer than just cram as many houses as they can get in it, why would we not try to give that incentive to that developer and allow them to have, a few more lots? I just don't think that it should be the mass proportion that it is now, because like I was saying, if you just base it on 10,000 and everything being developed, a topography that you could develop, that would be like 20 lots in exchange for 2 lots, not even 2 lots. So they're giving up 2 lots, but they're gaining 20. That doesn't really seem fair to the residents that already have a developed neighborhood around there. So how could we encourage them to put in something like the biocells that make the development look much nicer? And it could also double as an open space. And then also, encourage the open space throughout the development.
But even with those, they're engineered, and the lay of the land dictates whether or not you can actually have that or not. Volume is a huge player in that.
Mhm.
So depending on topography and all that, it may not be possible to use in space. It may not even be possible to do one of those.
Do you like them a lot better?
I think they're fine. I have no issue. Now they do get swampy. Now they're green and all that, but they perform a task no different than your ponds do. Your ponds catch, they funnel the water to the ponds. It slow releases it out, so you're not sending all this water out at one time. That's how they're designed.
Mhm.
What you're speaking on, it's a large area, it's kind of gets a little swampy, but it does use the vastness of the area to sort of slowly sheet it off. It requires a specific situation to be able to use them. Is what I'm saying. You couldn't use them for every situation.
Right, I know.
But where you can, obviously they're more attractive looking than, you know, a pond with baffles and all that other stuff in it.
Okay. So, you guys looked at the planning board recommendations for, the changes, and Aaron, were you okay with all of those changes?
Yeah, I mean, they agree with what was proposed staff wise. All of this was what you had before you was all staff suggestions. Planning board was in agreement with all that. The only difference came down to this section here, where staff didn't have the specifics that they have in section 10.249.6. Planning board had this, and I don't disagree with what they have. I mean, it does specify a little more, takes out like trails and lawn areas, stuff like that, so that developer wouldn't take advantage of that wording and vagueness to put something in that may count towards a provision when you're wanting something more concrete of a recreation use.
The other question I had was about the ownership and maintenance of the open space. It says you could do a dedication to the city of Graham. Is that something that we want to take on though in all these developments?
No.
Yeah, but it's unless the city
No.
agrees,
Yeah, unless the city agrees,
except.
because otherwise it'll
Maybe
belong to the
dumping.
homeowners association, which is where it belongs.
Right.
The city doesn't want to maintain all that.
Yeah, and the people just
But
gonna live
that's-
in this, people that would live in that subdivision, would write out in their covenants that it's open to the public if the city takes over.
Yeah.
Body and everybody could come into the subdivision.
So if we pass what you have now, it would make it better immediately. But how long would it take for you to be able to make a substantive change of
If
just
that-
this section? You have to
No.
rewrite the whole ordinance in order to do just this section?
if you're waiting to work it into the new ordinance, then
just-
it take that long. If you're looking at, all right, we need to just scrap this whole section and come back with something totally different. It would take a few months. It just depends on how many touch points we have throughout the ordinance to know, well, we gotta change this section too, or we gotta change this section as well. And, you know, make sure we catch all of them. Have to have our legal review to make sure that what's new in here is actually legal. And so it's gonna take months if we are trying to focus only on this section here and try to bring it back at the staff level.
See, I think if we take that approach, we're just piecemealing it versus saying, okay, do this with the understanding we'll do a full rewrite and prepare and fund it. Because as you said, as you go try to rewrite this, you find touch points, you may end up finding you've gone through the entire development ordinance.
I don't think so. I mean, I think he does, there's references back through the ordinance, but I don't think it's,
I mean,
we change things in the ordinance all
I
the
know.
time.
we've talked about the fact that we need to update our development ordinance.
But this won't stop that. This won't stop that process.
Yeah, but I feel that we're gonna be duplicating efforts. Because as you said, you're gonna be making touch points. But if we start rewriting the ordinance, it's gonna touch those touch points and decide, nope, we don't need that.
Yeah, and I mean, without looking through it, I don't know how many areas would have to be addressed. I know that this reference is in other areas of the ordinance currently. But staff wise, we can look at this section to try to see how can we address, address something to speak to what you're trying to get to from that end. I think, you know, if we couple that with the specifics of the recreation uses, it may meet the standards that you're all trying to speak to. It's gonna take a little bit of time because we're gonna have to research to see if we can find something similar to what you're speaking of and say, okay, this looks like what it is that we're trying to gain here. So we can certainly look at that. It's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be a few months to get it back to this point because it still has to go back through planning board and then back, you know, through the process here because it is a public hearing item.
Right,
So right now, really all you've changed though, I mean, going through here is you've taken out the word usable.
Mhm.
You've better defined what usable means. I'm sorry for the air quotes. I'm a product of the year I was born. And you basically, I mean, basically that's really all you've changed in here pretty much.
Right, this is a simple fix to address to get more of a recreation specific use.
Right, what those uses would
Right.
be.
And
So you better
that's what this
define what
is.
the uses would be, but you really haven't changed
No,
anything else as far as the trade-off and what that would be.
and that's the part that we would have to look at to come
So-
back with.
Okay. Okay. I mean, this already exists in this forum, so it's been there all along like
Yeah.
that. But I do think we need to change that, you know, during a rewrite, because I don't like that. I mean, I don't think the citizens would like that if they
Yeah.
understood what it meant, you know?
yeah.
But, I mean, I'm okay with the changes you made to this today. Because, you know, you really didn't change anything other than that, so.
Okay, so, haven't heard those. Any other discussion from council? Need a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Very fundamentally, I'm sorry, I'm not following part of this. The gray section, for instance, is that existing ordinance or proposed?
So the gray section was just highlighting whenever we were speaking about the compact.
But it's existing.
It's
Yeah,
existing.
everything you see here is existing except for what's in yellow.
That's my fundamental question. So yellow is new.
Red is what's being emitted, with the lines drawn through, the strike throughs. But yellow is new.
All right, and then there was another section where some of the yellow had red highlighting in it.
And that was the section where planning board had made changes that they.
All right, so 3 and 4 are proposed to be modified in that
Correct.
way. Okay, but I guess it's not clear then. I mean, I'm following what it says on the screen, but I'm not sure that I'm following what the mayor and council member Whitaker have discussed mostly relates to that.
They're saying it's not going far enough. They're saying that it's addressing a problem
Okay,
with this section, but there's a bigger problem that needs to be addressed.
There's a larger overarching problem
Yes.
that can't be solved with this, what they did here.
So I'd like to make a motion, we take this step to approve this so that at least the open space would have some recreational features and approve the text amendment to Article 10, Section 10.393. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, approve the ordinance amendment to Article 4, Division 12, Section 10.249, open space provision for.
We need to
Oh,
close
I
the
did,
public
I'm
hearing.
sorry. Did we?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. So I move to approve the ordinance amendment to Article 4, Section 12, Section 10.249, open space provision for R12, R15, and R18 zoning districts in the development ordinance to require recreational open space in all open space subdivisions with the caveat in the instruction to staff to look at a full rewrite of this section over the next 2 months, and come back to council with, recommended, verbiage for that. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Aaron, for your work on this. I appreciate it. This next text amendment hopefully will be very short, and this has been a big issue, though, this open space. It's one of the things that is almost like the biggest crawl in people is about this open space and not really being transparent. So it's been something that's been needed for a long time. The text amendment, Historic Resource Commission Board Reduction, City Council will consider an ordinance amendment to Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, Division 3, Boards and Commissions to the Code of Ordinance to reduce the Historic Resource Commissions from 7 to 5. I recognize City Manager, Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
Well, yeah, this would be quick, because you just said everything I was gonna say.
Okay,
75 member reduction as instructed by city council.
okay. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on the proposed text amendment?
Yes, Mayor, a question or two. Are there 7 current members?
No.
How many actual members are there?
It's 4 right now, right?
I wanna say there's four
I think it's 4.
active.
And it previously, I think it had,
Maybe it's
it had,
4.
Mr. Hatley,
All right.
yeah, just stepped down, so there was
Yeah, so
5.
it's, yeah, there was 5, but now there's 4.
yeah.
That's right.
And I think previously there was 5.
All right.
It's only like in the last couple of years that it went to 7.
All right. And so what is a quorum of this board?
Majority.
A majority of the seats or a majority of the then serving members?
It's the majority of, like, if there's 7 seats, then you would have to have, you know, I mean, if you've only got 4 members, if you were missing anybody or, right, anybody, then you don't have a quorum.
Well, that's my question.
'Cause it's based
Mayor,
on-
Because, for instance, I believe I've seen a recent HRC meeting at which there were only 3 members present, and yet they conducted the meeting as though they had a quorum and proceeded to discuss. And I don't remember if there was anything voted on, but
They were not voting on
They
anything.
have
It doesn't matter.
discussed, but I don't
Yeah.
think they voted.
You
long as
can,
they're not
you can
voting.
discuss, you just can't.
I'm not sure, Councilmember Whitaker, that you can in fact discuss when you don't have a quorum. A meeting is not duly constituted unless you have a quorum, is my understanding of state law. I'll defer obviously to your attorney, but I did not see how they proceeded with that meeting with only 3 members physically present.
Well, our goal is to make sure that they have a quorum and to have meetings. That's why it's like going from 7 to 5. Hopefully we'll alleviate that issue.
All right, but in
Yeah.
other words, in doing so, you don't have to take anybody off of the commission because you don't.
Correct,
Okay.
correct,
Right.
yes. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I make the motion.
All in, favor? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Now we need a motion to approve the ordinance amendment, to chapter 2.
I move to approve an ordinance amendment to Chapter 2 Administration, Article 2, Division 3, Boards and Commissions to the Code of Ordinance to reduce the Appearance Commission, wait a minute,
Local resource.
the Historic Commission members from 7 members to 5 members.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Text amendment, sign ordinance, no soliciting signage exemption. City Council will consider a text amendment to Article 10, Section 10.393 exemptions in the development ordinance to allow no soliciting signs as an exemption. Hereby recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
Thank you, Mayor. And this one is another short text amendment. A year or so ago, City Council approved through the Code of Ordinances an amendment that would allow for HOAs to be able to put up no soliciting signage. In doing so, we did not backfill that with what size signs put up, and we have had, a couple of subdivisions come through wanting to put up rather large,
Billboard signs.
a little smaller, but not too far off. But definitely large ones, because I guess they were irritated by the canvassers that were coming through, solicitors, so.
They ignore the smaller ones, that's why.
Well, what this does, it does allow staff some idea of what size signs are allowable within the city limits. It falls within the exempt section of the ordinance, so there's not a permit that's required, but it does give the ability for subdivisions to be able to put them up.
And so what is the rule in regards to that? If the sign's up and somebody's out there soliciting door to door?
And it's against the ordinance, so you can call the police
Call
and the
police.
police can come tell them to leave. Or ticket them, I guess.
And that's covered in the code of ordinances, which is in a totally set of rules, but that's set there. The sign size is what y'all are voting on tonight, size wise, and it's 4 square feet is what's being proposed,
4 square feet, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
which is a 2x2.
and this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that likes to speak to this proposed text amendment? Yes.
Keith Westbrook, 604 Chalkwater Court. What I'd like to speak on this is, all these small signs. All right, for example, over by the high school, coming down right before you get to Elm Street, they don't just put one, and I don't know why they got that sign there anyway. They don't just put one, they put two, and they go around the corner and put two more, then they go around that corner and put two more. I don't like all these signs, and it's not just these signs from the developers for these subdivisions that they're building. It's other signs, advertising things. I mean, it's got where if one guy puts a sign up, the next thing you know, you got 300 signs up. I don't like all these signs around. I think they're an eyesore. Just my opinion, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Westbrook. Not hear anyone else. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Need a motion to approve or deny the text amendment to Article 10.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve a text amendment to Article 10, Section 10.393 exemptions in the developmental ordinance to allow no soliciting signs as an exemption.
I second the motion.
Oh, wait, that's not. Okay, to allow the signage to be, not to exceed 4 feet.
Okay, this is an amendment
4 square
near
feet.
and dear to your heart, I'm
Yes,
sure.
it is.
Okay.
It is.
Um,
Not that it's
Motion.
doing any good because they still come into the neighborhoods and
and this was brought up, Aaron, because of there was a question about this and you needed some clarity, is that right?
Yes, we had a subdivision that was looking to put some signs up, and they wanted to put up 4x8.
Okay, all right, do I hear a second?
I second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And now, the latest and greatest from Mr. Brian Fawcett, Director of Graham Recreation and Parks. You said that I have to give you a great introduction. Come on, Brian, this is your claim to fame now.
This
Let's
is your
go.
moment.
I mean,
I'll defer,
pickleball was last month and now let's go here.
I'll defer to Emma Griffin,
Oh,
who is our
Emma.
program supervisor.
Emma, he's.
She's the
bringing
one
up
with all the
funds.
info.
All that introduction and that's all you're gonna say.
That's right.
Do I get an introduction like that? No,
You,
That's
if you
okay.
want one, yes.
I don't.
Oh,
I'll pass.
okay.
So I'm here today to give an update to City Council on the new Downtown Signature event that we are planning in the Recreation Department. I do have a PowerPoint that is loaded, and I also have a written program plan for you guys to follow along if you would like one. I told Brian when I was making the program plan and the PowerPoint, it's very difficult to put what goes on in my head while planning an event into writing to present to you all. So if you have any questions as we go through this, obviously ask as we go. That way it'll make a little more sense as we're going along. So the first thing we want to do when we start to plan a new event is to determine our event objectives. So you can see here that the number one objective that we look to accomplish when planning an event is to increase the sense of community in Graham. We are a growing city, however, we do have a small town feel with a very close-knit community feel. I think that is something that our residents and participants in and around Graham really enjoy when they come downtown and come to our events, is that it does feel like you're there with your neighbors and with your community. The next objective of this particular event would be to feature a variety of mediums of art through vendors, performances, and displays. This would be an arts-focused event, different performing arts, visual arts, and all the different types that we can find. And then obviously we want to provide activities for all ages. We do focus a lot of our events that we do geared towards families and children, but we do want to make sure that this event is something that is going to have something for all different demographics. And so some general information about the event that we want to take a look at is obviously first the date and the time of year. As of right now, we're looking at Saturday, May 17th, which would fall on the third Saturday of May. It is important when planning a new event, especially a signature event, to have an established date. That way people can plan for it moving forward. So that way on Sunday, May 18th of 2025, you got your vendors and people already marking it on their calendar for the next year, knowing that it's going to be the third Saturday in May. For time, we're looking at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That would allow ample setup time and travel time for our vendors and performers and artists, as well to the event and then from the event. It gives room to grow. It's a good starting point with a new event to have our vendors there for the 6 hours, but allows us room to grow and expand. We could start earlier. We can obviously go later, but kind of starting with that 6-hour time frame could be ideal to our vendors and artists. You will also notice there that would allow our street closures to be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we'll, on the next section, talking about location, obviously downtown Graham, however, specifically the 100 blocks of East and West Elm Street, 100 blocks of North and South Main Street, the public parking lot behind Roasted Coffee Depot and the Historical Museum on West Elm Street, as well as the public parking lot at East Elm and Marshall Streets to be closed. That would allow for all of our activities and vendor setup, as well as vendor parking allotted for those folks coming in. Some of the attractions we're looking at right now, obviously live music, arts vendors. We want to have artist demonstrations going on throughout the day as well. Have community organizations, a kids zone and activities, and food trucks also. On the next slide, you'll see a proposed event map. It's kind of small, and in the handout I gave you, you'll be able to see a little bit better. But that talks about the different placement of some of the activities we're looking at. So putting the stages at the end of the 100 blocks, and then assuming that we can also request permission of the Graham Amphitheater stage, obviously use of that rather than being on the street. Putting it at the end of the blocks would allow these stages to operate at the same time and their sound not overlap each other. So you could have different music or different performances going on 4 different stages throughout the day. Vendors and activities on East and West Elm Street, as well as North Main Street. The vendors obviously could be our arts vendors, and then activities would be anything from our artist demonstrations or partnerships that we may form with other organizations. South Main Street, we're looking at having our community and kids area. So you see the kids zone there, bounce houses, face painting, and then have a very community focused stage in that area also. Ideally, we would use the back parking lot behind the Historical Museum on West Elm Street for our food trucks and kind of have that as our food court area. You see that I mentioned there partnerships with other organizations, and those are just some ideas that we're working with right now, potentially having a car show going on during the event, a touch a truck event with our local emergency responder organizations, as well as a potential farmers and artisan market going on that day as well. So again, our goal is really to have something at this event for all of our demographics to cover all of our bases. You have any questions so far, or do you want me to keep going?
Well, save
Okay.
questions for the end.
Okay. So I just talked about our partnership organizations, farmers market, car show. One day, like kind of look pop up farmers market for our local vendors. We obviously have the Farm Fresh and Graham Farmers Market that happens on Wednesdays. That has a great draw and some really good vendors. There's also tons of farmers markets in the area that we could pull from. That would just be something unique to this event to allow people to come in to find these different items that maybe they're not making it on Wednesdays, but they can make it to this one-time event to discover some of our local farmers. A car show, we know there's several car shows that go on in the area, but it would be ideal to partner with a local organization and nonprofit organization to help coordinate that car show. That's a pretty passive activity. So once it is set up, you have the owners there, but it's something that people can walk by and enjoy throughout the duration of the event. And obviously, our most important partner would be our downtown businesses. We would want our downtown businesses to participate in this event, utilizing their storefront and their sidewalk to set up throughout the event of that day. The time period of this event ending at 4 also allows for businesses to continue the fun after the event ends by having music or events going on in their businesses the rest of the afternoon and evening. So maybe our event ends at 4, but some of the other businesses pick up a show in their restaurant or their bar or have an activity going on that evening. So even though the street event ends at 4, it could still continue on throughout the night, should the businesses choose. The next slide is our budget overview, which again, in the handout I gave you has a printed copy of that as well. I'm not going to go through it line by line with you guys because I know y'all can read, but some of the key points is noticing the music and entertainment, sound techs, renting a covered stage. We do, and I'm proposing 2 stages as of right now to rent that is covered. We do have a stage within the rec department. However, it's smaller and it is not covered for a full day event. You would want a covered stage just for the heat exposure to equipment and any performers. Our marketing, that is a bare bone marketing proposal at this moment that leaves room for more marketing opportunities to grow. You'll notice the interactive playgrounds line does not include their staff. That would be something I would have to get directly from them on the amount of staff that would be there. So that would be a little bit more. Obviously, we need restrooms during the event. Then you see our activities, various artist demonstrations. We have different quotes out there and ideas and room to grow within those lines as well. And then you'll see the line for our extra duty officers. The city council has allotted us $50,000 for this event. And right now with expenses, we have about $7,000 with wiggle room to spend. With it being a first year event, there will be last minute expenses that come up. Some of these numbers may be higher or may be lower. So we want to make sure we give ourselves wiggle room within that budget to be mindful of it. And then obviously anything that's not spent would go back into the general fund. All right. And so that's all our general information. You got to see some really cool pictures of various events that we've done over the years downtown. You see the people that come out, the smiling faces, that everyone is enjoying being downtown in the streets of Graham. And so we're excited to bring something new and different to our city. Y'all have any questions?
The partners, could we look at adding, I had talked to Carrie Worthy about maybe getting, Burlington Artists League and, or I think there's another art, organization that's located in Alamance County as well. Reach out, of course, again to Alamance Arts to see if they would want to participate at all, at least for being able to contact some of their artists, for demonstrations and stuff. I love the farmer's market, addition to this. And then in regard to extra duty solutions, like, I've never understood this, don't agree with it, never got past city council as far as I know. The extra duty solutions requirement, I feel like if it's an event that's sponsored by the city and we have staff and we require staff to be there for that, I feel like that's something that shouldn't, I don't understand why we're going through extra duty solutions, why that's not just like directly scheduling staff over there for whatever event that we're doing.
We do that for all of our events that require street closures or events in our parks that are happening late. Part of that is just general security. When you have that many people in a space and in an area, you want the extra security. Me walking around in my yellow recreation shirt doesn't really make a big difference, but you have an officer come up and ask someone to do something, you have that sense of security, which I think also helps some of our participants. It also assists us with closing the roads and the streets in the
You-
proper manner.
You may misunderstand me. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have the police there. I'm saying we should have the police there. I just don't understand why we're paying a third party to have our own police there. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, why are we paying someone else to hire our own staff? That just.
That's
doesn't-
above my pay grade.
Okay. These are the questions that. Huh?
That's a statement made by council.
Yeah, I mean, I say cut. I mean, that's more money that you have for in your budget. So I just don't understand why we need to pay them to hire our own people. It's one day, it's one event. We can just schedule staff to be there from the police department.
I'm not sure, and so not coming from a manager position or a police department position, recreation only. But my understanding of how these things have worked in the past is there's a cost and a time involved, yes. But when we have officers trying to get comp time or get paid overtime, that doesn't always jive, and there's a certain amount of hours they can work during a certain amount of period and within, I guess, the city's umbrella. So this gives them an opportunity to work, and we have our folks, our staff, basically, who know our city and we know them and know our events, but they're able to be compensated to come to our events, and we have a guaranteed amount of folks. If in the past, it's been like, oh, we've got an officer on duty and they can roll by. That's not very comforting when that officer on duty has to go somewhere else. It's way more.
I'm not agreeable to that. I don't think it should be somebody dedicated to that event that's there for you, just like, but how does it make sense to me to pay a third party to hire our own staff for our own event?
I think this is a pass through. Again, a very
But it
low level
costs money.
understanding of,
It costs money.
but
It's
I'm not,
just-
the majority, if not all, don't quote me, goes to the officer. And, you know, it's for us, it's a comforting way to know that we're going to have officers to attend our event and to keep our event secure. I don't know, AC King is gone. Megan, if, help me out, I'm stumbling here.
Say no more.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
So I think if city council wants to direct staff that police officers from the Grand PD will be present for this event, we can go ahead and coordinate that with PD. I think looking at EDS as a whole for other city events is something that would probably be wise to research and then present to council with the pros and cons. And then y'all can make an informed decision
Right.
for practice moving forward. So
Okay, sounds good.
does that work?
Yep.
I'll let you in.
And do you think, are you open? Because I had known, like, some people had said to me when we talked about the signature event, I think Lori Andrews was interested in sitting on a committee to help. You know, I could, apply for the grant through the Visitors Bureau to hopefully get $10,000 in marketing funds. I had applied for that last year to be able to do a signature event, so I feel comfortable I could probably get that again for the event, which would give, another, more money, because you said your marketing,
Well, that was a bare bones marketing plan. As you saw, we did have wiggle room left in the budget to add more marketing. We just wanted to be mindful in planning at this stage in our budget what we would put towards marketing. So we do plan to do more. To my knowledge, the grant with the Visitors Bureau is strictly for out-of-county marketing. So while that, yes, will be great to bring people from out of county, our side of the marketing budget would focus within the county
right?
as well. So I would obviously not be opposed to more marketing opportunities.
Okay, well, are you opposed to like people helping with the event?
Depending on what the help is. I mean, I think you can get too many cooks in the kitchen.
Correct, I totally agree.
I want our community feedback. I want our downtown business feedback. However, at one point it will get to the spot that I'm hired to do a job that I've proven I can do. And some decisions will have to be made from our side of things. But that's not to say that I don't want the feedback and wouldn't welcome that.
So do you want to have like what you did with the, you had a meeting, I think, invited the businesses or whatever to the, splash event. What is that called?
Slice of summer.
Slice of
It's a
summer.
yeah, event. And then like people like Lori and other people that are interested in the event could come and give input or whatever. And you would control obviously the meeting and the event and everything, but if you had a list of tasks and you had volunteers that are willing to like call artists or, work on different things. So I'd love to get Carrie involved if Carrie would be willing to help. He's excellent and I think you would enjoy working with him.
And we've met with Carrie a couple times
Okay.
as well. So obviously welcome the input from people who have more experience and knowledge when it comes to our artists than I do. And I'd be definitely open and welcome to doing a public interest meeting to, one, gain feedback and then see where people are interested in helping out. We do have an online volunteer form. So if outside of the public interest meeting, we can also put that out there for folks who are interested in volunteering at any of our events, because we always need help. They can go in and fill that form out and we can contact them when there are opportunities available for them as well.
And I would like to add, and I think it's worth mentioning, that Recreation is going to provide city council periodic updates as they move through this process. So this presentation here tonight isn't a one and done, that you're hearing kind of their initial thoughts on it. And then the next thing you see is the publication for the event. It may not be every month. It just kind of depends on how much activity has happened. But they are prepared to come every 2 to 3 months as needed leading up to the event to keep city council in the loop on what's happening, keep the public in the loop, and then obviously anyone could provide feedback at this as well.
Do we have a name for this event?
Arts Around the Square.
And that's something that's up to city council. Ultimately, I know in at least the prior year's budget approval motion, it was specific that it was going to be Arts Around the Square. And without looking back at the minutes for the current fiscal year, I just don't recall right now if that was in there. So really, we just need consensus from council on the EDS issue, if that's something that y'all want to direct. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 heads nodding, so we have council consensus on that. And then regarding the name, so they have a direction to move forward, so y'all tell us.
Arts Around the Square 2.0.
Seriously? The
Yeah.
2.0 part?
No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
For your layout, you had the arts around the courthouse.
Yeah, and I've stood up here before and gone back and forth with different opinions, and I have mine and you guys have yours. So we can definitely do that, if that's consensus of the council.
I mean, it's a well-known, and it's like Pepsi or Coca-Cola, that there is some money, there is some value to the name because people appreciated the event, they loved the event, it's very well-known. And I think, why reinvent the wheel when you can do that and it's gonna be artist-focused, so.
I agree with all of that. My only concern has always been this is going to be a different product than what that was 20+ years ago. So I don't want to have a false expectation of people seeing Arts Around the Square splashed all over our marketing, and then they come and that's not what they get. That's not what they remember.
I mean, from everything that she's saying, it's what was at the previous one that isn't at this one that wouldn't be
This
as
one,
good or better.
I agree, but this one for us could have a broader reach than just Arts Around the Square
Correct.
did. So that's where I've always thought of a broader, thought in broader terms of a name instead of so arts focused. I do, Mr. Chin, like the arts in the square that, that Emma had up there, and that would always be a part of the event. I feel restricted with the name personally, but if council wants to have it Arts Around the Square, it will be called that, and, we can go in whichever direction it flows in. Again, as Emma,
About like a folk life festival or something.
Yeah, y'all come up with some names.
Yeah, I mean, we got plenty of time to come up with
Yeah.
a name, right? I mean,
The Arts Around the Square and more.
if, so, Tom asked if we had a name, and I mean, Emma and I differ on names. We have different working titles for different things too. But if it's a consensus that it's Arts Around the Square, it's Arts Around the Square. If it's a consensus that, hey, we're interested in what you guys think, then we'll bring you something at some
Yeah.
point. But
I'd really like for it to be Arts Around the Square because I think that people have wanted that to be come back, and I think that people have an expectation of having, it's a celebration of artists in different mediums, and, with all the demonstrations and stuff that she's looking to do, I think that you'd check that box for sure. And it's like, Mebbane's known for the Dogwood Festival and Burlington's known for the Carousel Festival, and we were known for years and years and years for Arts Around the Square. So I personally, I mean, I don't know, I'm nostalgic. I would prefer for it to be called that.
Yeah, but I
Um,
think your point, Brian, about in 20 years, there are a lot of new folks, never saw it, never heard about it. So there's pros and cons. You're exactly right. For those who've been here, you say that, certain images pop up in their minds. For those of us who are new here,
you have no reference,
no reference point.
right?
And if city council doesn't necessarily land on something tonight, and
Yeah.
you want us to bring it back and you have suggestions, obviously Arts Around the Square is one that would be considered, but if you have others, feel free to let us know. And then when rec comes back for a discussion, they'll kind of all be on the table for a decision.
Yeah, I mean, tonight, I think we were looking more for a direction of the event itself. Of, does this feel like something that when council allocated money for a new signature event, this is maybe leading down that road?
I definitely like the interactive displays, like, having someone there that does dance, someone there that
Mhm.
does glass blowing, pottery, stained glass, all of that. I think that's very interesting to people to be able to watch people make that. When I went recently to Epcot to see their Festival of the Arts, they had all sorts of different, opportunities and demonstrations for people to participate in, and was, it was great. It was wonderful. It was a great opportunity. They had chalk art and just so many different, mediums. And, that lady that does the thing with the pressure washing and does that beautiful artistry that's in Greensboro, she'd be great to have. I mean, I think that would really resonate with people. It's something unique and different that nobody has really seen before. So, she does a fantastic job with photography, and I love that kind of stuff. I would love attending that and going to every specific demonstration that you have. I'm real interested in seeing that.
Could I ask one more question of council?
Sure.
Emma had the date and time and location, all of those kind of meeting expectations?
Yep.
Okay,
I mean, I do
Okay.
think we should hear from the business as soon as you can do one of those meetings to make sure that there's not, and you've already checked, I assume, that there's no other events going on that day.
Yeah, we looked at different local events going on. Obviously, spring is a pretty saturated time of year for events, but it does seem to be ideal for something like this. So the Dogwood Festival had traditionally been the third weekend of April, but this past year they ended up being the fourth weekend of April. So that kind of, I don't know what direction they are going there. And then the Carousel Festival is the first weekend of May. The following weekend after that is Mother's Day and graduations. And so then that leads us to the third weekend of May, which I think is good to space them out also because we do, yes, want to draw people from out of Alamance County into this event as well. But you're going to get a lot of people who they're going to go to the Dogwood Festival, then they're going to go to the Carousel Festival, and then hopefully they come to downtown Graham too. And so to break it up a little bit, I think giving it that extra weekend, it's before Memorial Day, before a lot of traveling. I think the weather can be ideal. It's North Carolina, so we know how that can go. But it's kind of hitting the mark before we get into a season that gets unbearably hot.
Are we still going to keep the slice of summer?
Yes, we would still keep Slice of Summer with the date. Slice of Summer has traditionally been like that Saturday right when ABSS gets out of school. We would likely bump that back a couple weeks. I think when the event was initially brought up, Kristen had it around the summer solstice, which was a little later. I selfishly kind of moved it up because at the time I was also doing summer camp and I needed to finish the event and go into summer camp. So we would bump it back to like give space between.
I didn't want us to
The event.
lose one to gain another one.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And no, we definitely want to keep that event. That's something that our community has come to love. And so we want to keep that, but we would likely give it a little space between that.
Yeah, we've restructured staff responsibilities to allow capacity for Emma to add signature events. So we're not giving one for another one.
Yeah, I think the North Carolina Arts Council does the Village of Yesteryear at the State Fair.
Mhm.
And that, they have some really good artisans there and displays and. it's
When
just
is
really neat.
that?
State Fair,
When is that?
October.
October, yeah.
Maybe that would be one of
Good
our,
field trip.
one of our volunteers could go on a field trip and hand out cards or something, or get names and numbers of people.
I think it's through the North Carolina
Yeah,
Arts
city
Council.
filter.
Okay,
I think-
I'll look into it.
Yeah,
for
but
sure.
that's a really good, probably resource, because they fill that place up. I mean, you can't even walk in there, because people watching they do the silhouettes and the basket weaving, and there's people painting, you know,
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and those types of ideas, feel free to email them in whatever format that Megan sees fit to get those ideas to us whenever they strike your fancy. Send it our way.
I mean, I really want it to be an artisan event, not just a bunch of junk vendors coming out and selling.
Agree.
Yeah, we're gonna, we
No
are
31
gonna
bags,
have
that kind of
high
stuff.
standards
Yeah.
for the vendors who come. They'll be, what's the term, juried?
Yeah.
To make sure it's not, you're buying something somewhere else and reselling it here. That's not what we're looking for. Just to have X number of vendors on at the festival. That's not what we're gonna do.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation.
Just a
Thank you.
technical question, Madam Mayor. I'm wondering if the Arts Around the Square name is in any way trademarked, even if it's dormant for 20 years? Does anybody happen to know the background legally?
I don't, but my gut says no, but I don't know for a fact.
I do have a question for council. So not deciding on the name yet. However, would you be opposed to us coming back next month with a street closure request so that way we can begin reaching out to vendors and supplying contracts? Because we don't typically like to do that until we have approved street closures to know the event's happening. But with like music artists and different vendors, they're planning like now for next year.
Can you have that meeting with the businesses and stuff prior to that?
I can set it up.
Okay.
Yes,
Well, if they don't come,
yes, I will set a meeting.
yeah.
I mean.
I will give I'll give a few options too, because I know one time's not always ideal for everyone. I can do a couple different options and set it up prior to then. I just want to get the ball rolling to get some of those contracts
All you
started
can do
to lock them
is
down.
reach out. That's all you can do. And
Absolutely.
When that's come up before, I've sent a text message and said, you know, Emma reached out. She sent 5 emails. If you don't read your email and you don't participate, then, you know, but I mean, you did everything you could,
Yeah,
right?
we'll get it out through our means of communication once the date is set.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I need to make an amendment to my motion.
What motion?
Motion.
What motion?
The motion about reducing the number of the members of the historic resource.
Okay.
I move to approve the ordinance amended to Division 10, Section 10.2 Section 10.201C1, Historic Resources to the Development Ordinance to reduce the total members of Historic Resource Commission from 7 members to 5 members.
I second his
Didn't we-
motion.
It was passed, but it was done,
Ending it.
it was done for a code of ordinance, amendment section versus development.
Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. ABSS and City of Graham joint use agreements, again, my illustrious, rec and park director, Brian Fawcett.
One more time.
There you go.
Yes, ma'am. So this one's pretty straightforward. This is a simplifying, clarifying document, 2 separate documents that, one is renewing a contract that is set to expire September 26th, I think, of 24. That has been a 25-year contract with ABSS, allowing the city of Graham to utilize their property, basically the fields that are at Graham Middle School, for our athletics programs. For that 25-year period, the city of Graham has maintained the grounds of those fields. And in exchange, we're able to use them generally after school hours, 5:30 or 6, depending on facility and time of year and that sort of thing. So the new agreement is clarifying some points. It's adding, clarifying that the ABSS school system will maintain facilities, meaning the built facilities such as the concession stand at the football field, whereas the city will continue to maintain the grounds. It also adds a communication piece that says that the two organizations will meet at least 3 times a year to go over what's working, what's not, to go over schedules, because we need to get the school system schedules, because our staff maintains those fields and preps those fields for them. And it reduces the length of contract down to 10 years instead of 25. I say contract, but it's an agreement. The second agreement is formalizing other agreements that have been in place over the years in 1-year terms in the past. These are mainly for the Ray Street Gym, which the city has used for as long as I can remember for our basketball program. We'll start it sometime generally in November and we'll end sometime generally in March, depending on when the seasons fall and the games finally come to an end. It also formalizes the school system's use of the Bill Cook Park tennis courts. And it's bringing in the school system's use of room number 2 at the Graham Recreation Center for preschool. What's the program? I'm missing the word. It's like a therapy program, preschool therapy program that they're hosting at the rec center. So early intervention program. Thank you. So this agreement, the second agreement, is formalizing all of those kind of individual agreements that we've had scattershot throughout the years. So,
There's no money going back. We're just bartering out time. And then you said we have less maintenance responsibilities under this new contract, right?
correct, less maintenance because it specifically states that ABSS is responsible for the facility. Again, those built facilities, concession stand, those sorts of things. If something goes wrong with an air conditioned unit or a restroom or whatever, they're responsible for fixing that. Currently, the city goes to maintain that. Although we have not used the concession stand at the football field at the middle school in a number of years, we still are currently maintaining those. It also states, stipulates, if you get down into the weeds, that the school system has to provide the paint that we use to paint out the football lines. They provide all of that. We're not just supplementing that. And so it kind of goes into in the weeds and those details, but all of that is still maintained from our
We have-
current
This will
organization.
be less cost than what we currently have now,
Correct,
and we're not going down on any of our usage.
correct.
Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Do I hear a motion to approve the joint facility use agreement?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the joint facility use agreement for Graham Middle Athletic Facilities and a joint facility use agreement for Ray Street Gym, Bill Cook Park, tennis courts, and room number 2 at the Graham Recreation Center.
Madam Mayor, second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Boards and commissions. There is, well, I'd like to put forward we have Appearance Commission, Historic Museum Board, Planning Board, Recreation Commission, Library Committee. I know this Lindsay McKinney, I think she would be a good one for the library board.
Yes.
Patrick's the only one that's applied for the rec commission. Jim Young had applied last time for the planning board, but didn't get on it, and he got, because I think there was another person that had applied. So this is his second time applying for that board, so I think he's great. He's done good on the other board that he was on. Melissa Holmes, the only one applied for the Historic Museum. And then I recommend the Clell Britt for the Appearance and Tree Board. I'd like to put forward that slate of recommendations if anybody has anything else, but that's the recommendation that I'd like to put forward.
Madam Mayor, I'll second your motion.
But we still need one more for the Appearance Commission.
I'd like to wait on that and continue to advertise, but at least this would get them a quorum.
Okay.
Can we go forward with, I have a motion and a second on the floor? Is there, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And then there's a public comment, Nicole Papetti, 306 West Pine Street, Graham.
Good evening. I'm not good with public speaking, so I wrote.
That's okay. We're all friends here.
My name is Nicole Papetti. I live and own a house with my partner, Joseph Kirkman. It's just down the road, on Pine Street. And I don't know if this is the correct forum for this, but, I saw that the city council meeting was today, so I came. On August 8th, the post office in Graham, sent a letter to us stating that we must install a curbside mailbox and that they will stop delivering our mail if we do not comply within 15 days. We have an old house. It's had a mounted mailbox since it was built in 1939, and it's been the established mode of delivery since then. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the neighborhood. It's just right here. No other house on Pine or any of the neighboring streets have curbside mailboxes. Most have the house mounted. We've been receiving our mail at the house on the mounted mailbox, so that mode of delivery has been established for us. And we looked at the Postal Operations Manual, section 631.7, conversion of mode of delivery, and it states that in the single-family housing areas where the residents and lots are owned, each owner must agree to the conversion in writing. Owners that do not agree must be allowed to retain their current mode of delivery. When a residence is sold, the mode of delivery cannot be changed arbitrarily prior to the new resident moving in. The existing mode of delivery must be retained absent an agreement otherwise, and we have not agreed to the change. And since receiving this letter a few days ago, we've been trying to figure out the best course of action. And I'm sure you can understand, we don't have to have a crystal ball to see that going to the postmaster with their own regulations might not end well. So I don't want to upset anyone or any agency. It just feels like we're being singled out on our street. And 15 days to comply is a pretty tight timeline. It just seems unreasonable. So we just want to get it resolved quickly and according to their own regulations. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that we're referencing the USPS's own rules and regulations. And I even have them here outlining the customer, their customer rights. So, yep, that's all I have.
I'll direct this question to our Assistant City Manager. You look like you want to say something.
Okay. Okay.
Now, where folks used to have mailboxes out in front, now they have to have cluster boxes.
Mhm.
That's not a city's
Yeah.
desire, but that's a requirement of the post office, which is
Okay.
federally ran, so you.
But it seems like you have your ducks in a row. You've got chapter and verse of what it says that they shouldn't arbitrarily be just requiring you to change.
Yeah. And we've been receiving our mail,
And how long have you been living there?
2.5 months, and we just received this letter.
So are y'all the only ones on the street that got that letter? I'm just curious.
We talked to our neighbor, and he's lived there his whole entire life. And he had never got a letter, and he doesn't know if anyone else has gotten one.
It seems like they're violating their own
That's, I mean, from what,
policy, because it does say you have to agree to it.
from what we
and it
can
can't be
tell,
arbitrary.
from what we can tell, that's the case. And just saying 15 days kind of just seems like, kind of scare us just into doing it. So.
Or someone who has done addressing for the county, you can request a a review from, the Postmaster General in
Okay.
Greensboro.
In Goldsboro?
Greensboro.
Greensboro, okay. I was like, how is,
Once that person says yea or nay,
Mhm.
it's written in stone.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
I mean, I get the reason why they want to do it, postman getting bitten by dogs and different kinds of things or
There was
whatever.
nothing on there.
Yeah, but
It was just, it has to move. That was it.
yeah, they just trying to do it more, they're trying to get everybody to move from
Yeah,
personal delivery to that. And if you don't buck them, they figure, well, that's one more down. and
yeah.
then keep going.
yeah.
But
And it's
yeah,
I don't
if
want to
that's,
cause an issue, but I also just don't really understand the things
Yep.
right, so.
say I bought it for no other reason but personal delivery to my doorstep. And I demand this service.
I mean, I think it would look odd also, everyone else on the street. We have, like post lamps at the end of our street, or at the end of our driveway. We don't have mailboxes.
Yeah, I saw a
So-
video recently where this business owner that was operating their business, they had like a bunch of boxes to mail, and they were going to the post office, and the post office was refusing to take them. And they did have a box truck. I don't know, it's like thousands of boxes, but it's their business and they're delivering. I didn't know the post office could refuse to
Yeah,
take them. I was like,
I
this
don't-
is bizarre.
and I don't want to get in that position because I'm not the kind of person to like, cause a stir and have someone refuse.
But your
to bring me my
taxpayer,
mail.
your tax
Yes.
dollars pay for that, so,
The people in Greensboro are really nice people.
Okay,
yeah.
all
yeah.
right.
I'm sorry that you had to wait to find this out, but, good luck to you.
Thank you.
We wish you the best of luck. You can tell them that the city council has your full,
Okay.
you have the full blessing of the council that your mail's delivered to your
Thank
doorstep.
you. Well, then this was worth it.
Well, you have
Thank
a
you.
good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any other comments? Okay, city staff comments? Okay, city council comments?
Yeah, the sesquicentennial park is getting worse. There are more cracks.
I think one of the columns is.
Yeah,
even
the
starting to
walls
lean
are
in.
starting to lean.
Well, that maybe the
Loop.
column that supports the pergola, whatever's
Yep.
kind of leaning a little bit.
Why can't we get an estimate, on that thing? Because I don't think, I mean, we
This-
just keep getting, we keep requesting one, but we can't seem to get anybody to bid on it. Is that right?
Well, and we haven't put it out for any sort of formal bid, but we do have this slated to come back to city council in September.
Okay. All right. well,
Who originally put the park there? What was the organization? It wasn't the city of
It
Grant.
was a committee that was for the sesquicentennial, celebration. And they went out and raised money and then got, I believe, some money from the county. And raised money to build and sold bricks in order to be able to build it.
It seems like, they should be reinstated and try to raise money to save the park, because it was their park. Is that,
Well,
I mean,
we differ greatly on the
right,
recollection of this, but my understanding was that it was for that celebration, and so I think they became defunct after that, and it was like their kind of gift, but yeah, it was never, several people were complaining or whatever about people don't want to spend taxpayer dollars on hanging baskets in the downtown, but city spends a lot of money on maintenance of the sesquicentennial park for the flowers and all of that every year. So I don't know.
I don't know what the solution is, but
But I think
regardless-
like for us
regardless of
to
what
have
it is.
numbers would be very helpful. And so if hopefully we're going to be able to get those.
But
next
we've even
month.
talked about moving the park. Well, there's gonna be a huge expense in doing that. I mean,
But then you wouldn't have any more expense.
well, you'd still have to maintain it wherever it was. Depends on how you built it back, you know, you did the flowers and, you know, I mean, there's still expense. It's fixed, if it's fixed correctly,
Not if you didn't build it back.
right, but I mean, there's been talk about moving it, and that's also gonna be a pretty large number to reestablish the park somewhere else. So, I don't know, I was just thinking if the organization that put it there could help raise funds, then it would take it off the taxpayers. I know there's some people that want to keep it there and some people that want it gone. It's a kind of a touchy subject, so.
It is.
I was just thinking if,
Heard from several businesses that don't want it there. I'm far enough away from it, but, there's some businesses over there that, on Main
Oh.
Street that have,
it's not very well lit and at night it can be,
is it better with the new lighting that they have over there?
Yes.
is,
I had
yeah.
run over there with that new, with the new LED, I haven't
But it
noticed.
doesn't cover the whole park, but it's brighter in that corner.
I have
You have something?
I have one issue I want to bring up.
Yep, I have an issue too.
I want us, council to look at, since we talked about the solicitation problem, this problem is a bigger issue than anybody realizes.
Yep.
And it's growing and growing and growing.
They're getting more aggressive
Right.
too.
I'd like to see
residents.
I'd like to see us set a time limit that these people can be in any one given area or any one given subdivision. The hours would be from 9 o'clock to 5:30 in the afternoon. I mean, when you come to my house at 8 o'clock at night and bang on my door and ring my doorbell,
Well, they're not supposed to be in our neighborhood. Because we have a no soliciting sign up.
right?
That's the whole problem.
But it's not only our subdivision, but Broadview Acres. I've had quite a few people stop by the hardware store and talk to me about it. Over there at the Forks at Alamance, the new subdivision, Lacey Farms. Especially this summer, there were just people, right up till 9 o'clock at night, just banging on people's doors. And I'd like for us to be able to, if there is some way that we can set a time limit, that it would be from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5:30 in the afternoon. Is that doable, Mr. Ward? Bring us something back.
Yeah,
No, aren't they required to get permits or
Permits.
something?
Yes,
Yeah, but they don't
they don't do that either.
do that either.
And,
If you ask them for a badge, I don't have to have one on me.
I actually had to threaten to tase a guy on my property about 2 weeks ago, and I was gonna do it, and I will do it. If he had not left, he'd have been on the ground. I'm over it.
not the taser.
Well, he's lucky that's all it was.
You have anything to? Okay, so I'm still getting a lot of complaints from businesses, and just citizens that are coming downtown that are trying to enjoy their downtown with aggressive panhandling. Was wondering if we could possibly reach out to the Graham PD to see if maybe that gentleman that handles the parking solicitation, if he could be trained on like people that are doing aggressive panhandling and have him and people that are, like, we've got somebody right now that's camping out on one of the benches, and it'd be one thing if, I mean, that particular person makes such a mess. And I've had like 3 different business owners come and said, you need to move that bench because I'm tired of going out here and getting up sandals and bread and beans and,
Gatorade bottles.
yeah, all kinds of different stuff. And they're like, every day I'm having to go out here and clean up after this guy. And so they're just really getting fed up. And, one of the people, complained that they were going to, the movie with their children. I guess Garfield was playing this past weekend. And he was out there using all kinds of vulgar language and just having an episode or something and just really causing a major disturbance. And she's like, I just left. And she's like, I just didn't feel safe, you know, and we just don't want people that are downtown to be saying things like that. We don't need that. You know, I think now with the Supreme Court making that ruling about, you even see California cleaning up, the encampments that are everywhere, there that have really caused, the look of the downtown, even in San Francisco and places like that, look really bad. So is it possible to, I know he's only part-time, but is it possible to make him more of a full-time person and not just handling traffic, but actually handling like that aggressive, and if, you know, the aggressive panhandling that is being done down there?
Yeah, so your question is sort of twofold. To answer the first part, is it possible to make him full-time? Yes, that's up to city council. And if that's something that you want us to pursue, obviously there's a cost for that and, you know, the individual's personal circumstances, but we can bring that forward, you know, assuming the stars align and there is a consensus from city council, we can bring that back next month with any associated costs for consideration and approval. As far as what he can or can't do, I think it would really depend on what a non-sworn person can do. So we can check into that and report back to city council on, you know, kind of where his boundaries are.
And I feel like it's just like, as soon as an officer comes down there, they stop. So it's like, if he's got, I know he's not an officer, but if he has some sort of official uniform and he's saying you can't do that, I think it would stop a lot of it.
Yeah.
I just get complaints almost every day about it. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm in my office, so me personally, it doesn't affect, but I just, you know, I feel bad that people continue to. I went out there to Wits Custard, and as soon as I walked by, hey, Mayor, can you do something about these people? They literally will not take no for an answer and won't leave, you know, and I said, okay, yeah, keep bringing it up. I keep bringing it up.
So is it council consensus to try to transition that position from part-time to full-time?
Yeah, but
Or
He needs to be
evaluate it
in-
and see what the best solution for the problem is.
Okay.
That may
Yeah.
not be the best
Yeah,
solution.
I don't know that that's, yeah.
I mean,
That's fine.
Depending on
Yeah.
what he's able to do.
Yeah, we can bring it back to you next month for
because he's
consideration
not
of
a
both
sworn-
of
He's
those.
not a sworn officer.
No, he's not.
He's a really cool guy.
No, but he can call a sworn officer.
He can borrow my
Yeah,
taser
can.
call, yeah.
Sure can. Dial him right
for a
up.
price.
Or he
We'll-
can call
we'll bring
Bonnie
that
with
back.
her taser.
We'll bring that back next month.
Okay, the next issue I have is another resident came to me and said that there is a house on Main Street that's beside their home, and somebody is renting it out, on Airbnb for $30 a night. You can just imagine the clientele that is coming in and out.
Are they charging the new occupancy tax on that as well?
I guarantee you I don't know, they're probably not, I don't know. Probably, I guess if it's through Airbnb, they'd have to be, but my issue is that it doesn't, according to these neighbors, it doesn't have a stove, it doesn't have a refrigerator. It's not a typical Airbnb rental where somebody is going there and renting the entire home for the night, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, I literally, where my house is, the neighbor beside me has an Airbnb, and while they've parked in my driveway, they have excessive trash. I'm not for telling them you know, if there's an issue, I call the owner and he usually handles it. And he didn't want any trouble, and most Airbnb owners don't. But this to me is more of like, you know, I don't think, do we not have an ordinance that says, I know Burlington does, about like group, what do you call those kind of houses? Yeah, boarding houses, and it's like you're renting it by the night and by the week. I mean, I think we used to have a hotel that was like operated by the hour. But we don't want to encourage that. So how can we make sure that that's not happening?
If there's a change that we may need to make, we'll bring that back as well. And then if that's something you want us to proceed with, then we can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that with being close proximity to the interstate, that encourages, that kind of use is encouraging, you know, drugs and other kinds of unsavory activities that we don't really want to, I think, encourage or have the, when you think of an Airbnb, that's not what you're thinking of, is that people are renting a room for $30 a night. And I feel bad for that resident that does take very much pride in their home and their appearance of their home, that, you know, she was very concerned about all the activity that she sees going on there. She said they had to call the police about a, you know, altercation a couple of times, and they found needles in the yard and stuff because her yard's adjacent to their yard, and just different things like that that just don't need to be happening. So I know that other cities have implemented some rules regarding Airbnbs because people have kind of taken advantage of that. And I just want us to make sure that we're protecting homeowners. Okay. That's all I have. We have some events coming up. We have a concert on August the 24th. At the city stage, and
At the
Art-
Balloon Fest coming
at
up,
the Balloon Festival coming up,
September 13th, 14th, 15th.
15th, yep. I would like to ask, and do you have in your budget to be able to have that train this year? That gentleman, we hired him for the Balloon Festival, but I would love to be able to have him there for the Halloween, because he does like a haunted train. Do you think that we could?
I don't have it in my budget. It was paid for by downtown business sponsors. So that was one of those additional attractions that's provided by the downtown businesses.
Yeah, is that something that the council would consider possibly doing? Giving additional money for that? How much is your budget for that event?
Sounds close.
Around there.
Yeah.
If we do go that direction, I would like to make sure proper waivers and insurance is taken from or got by the company. That's one of our concerns with things like that. We require all of our vendors to do a COI listed in the city as additional.
You won't have any problems with him, because we hired him for the Balloon Festival. He just spent $100,000, I think, on, he does it because he loves it, but I think he's like a retired engineer or something like that. So he's got a new handicap one that he just had made, so that it actually like has a gate where you can like drive, roll a handicap wheelchair into it for people to be able to ride. But I think he brings two, and do you remember what the price was? It's like maybe a little less than $2,000 or something. And I had suggested it last year to you guys, but you didn't have the budget, so we went out and found sponsors for it or whatever. But if you guys would consider that, I'd like for the council to consider, you know, it may be increasing your budget if needed, but can you come back to next council's meeting and let us know what that is? And I'll send you his information, but I'd love for him to be at that event. Did y'all come to the event, the Halloween event last year?
Working it.
Yeah, it was really nice. I really liked it. Okay, that was all I had. Bonnie, do you have anything?
Come in.
Bobby, nothing? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
sure. Do I hear a motion?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.